Hello, everyone out there. Hi, Sophia. Maya is from the UK, and
Oh,
she
great.
reads a lot of cozy. So we're happy to always see her. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. We talked for just a few minutes before we get started. And I said we'd start with just, whatever you want to tell us about your series and each book. If you have any new ones scheduled to come out, anything else? If you'd like to show the covers.
Okay. So I guess we can start. But first, I want to thank you for inviting me. I've never done anything like this before. So, if I fall off my chair or something, just wait a minute. I'll climb back up again.
Okay, I promise I won't laugh. Well, maybe I'll laugh a little bit. No.
Yeah. Well, we're here to laugh, right? Cozy's all right. So, yeah.
Well, you're welcome. And I'm really excited to have you. I really appreciate it. I love the series.
Good. Thank you. So for those, hi, everybody out there, Sophia, Kay, Storm. And I write the 5-ingredient mysteries. They are set on the eastern shore of Maryland in a small town near the Chesapeake Bay. And they feature a young woman in her 30s who manages a cafe at an athletic club and her grandfather solving local murders. Now, in the first book, which is called By Cook or by Crook, and I'm going the wrong way here, but I have all of the books lined up, first 6 books lined up behind me. I don't know if you can read them or not. It's a little bit hard to do that, but they are the large print versions because they're kind of big, and I thought they might show up in the video, but if they don't, they don't. Anyway, getting back to the first book, it's called By Cook or by Crook. And this is the book in which Val comes to live with her grandfather. She has had a career as a cookbook publicist in New York, and her career kind of crashed because of a nasty celebrity chef. And Granddad has been living by himself for about 6 years since his wife died. And Val's mother has sent her to put him on a more healthy diet than he's been having and get him active. He sits in front of the television and watches old videos. He used to own a video store, which of course obviously closed because everybody streams their movies now. But he has a huge collection, and he's particularly fond of Hitchcock films. But that comes in a later book. But anyway, Granddad is not particularly happy about eating the kind of food that Val is making for him. So he decides, I'm going to learn to cook. If she can do it, I can do it. The thing is, he won't try with anything with more than 5 ingredients because it's just too much to be bothered with. So he gives the title to the series, The 5-Ingredient Mysteries. And each book in the series has 5 suspects, 5 clues, and Granddad's 5-ingredient recipes. In that first book, a patron at Val's cafe is murdered, and Val's cousin is the suspect. And so she decides that she's going to help solve the murder rather than see her cousin get arrested for it. And she is in a unique position in being new to the community. So she doesn't really know who she's dealing with, but she manages to find a way to get them to talk to her. And in the process of solving this murder, she also solves a little bit of a mystery about herself. And both she and Granddad at this point are at a crossroads. It's a question of what's next for each of them. And so Granddad actually capitalizes on his new cooking skills, or rather the lack of them. And Val figures out, I'm not here for a short time. This is my home. It's where she spent her summers when she was a child, and this is where she feels most at home. She's not going back to New York at all. So that's the first book. The second book is called Scam Chowder. And
That's hilarious.
Typically, the titles of the books have a lot to do with the story. So this book is about scams against retirees, which is a really big issue. I mean, this is a multi-million-dollar crime that goes frequently unpunished. And the book begins as Val is making chowder because Granddad has invited a bunch of people over for chowder. He's trying to pretend he made the chowder. So she's in the kitchen and she's got to stay hidden. But she overhears a conversation between him and his new lady friend, suggesting that we should call this scam chowder because we're going to get that scammer tonight. We're going to expose him. And so you can imagine what happens next. The suspected scammer goes face down in the chowder. And now Granddad's the big suspect because he went after him. So Val and Granddad have to work together in order to clear his name. But in the course of doing it, they find an awful lot, find out a lot about the whole business of scamming seniors. And I think probably my most favorite comment that a reviewer has ever made is she said it was an excellent mystery coupled with a great public service announcement. So it's kind of something that teaches you about what to beware of in that type of crime and why it often goes unpunished. Next book is called Final Fondue. And the idea behind it is, well, fondue is chocolate fondue, of course, not cheese, chocolate. It's associated with Valentine's Day and love. And that's what the whole story revolves around. In Bayport, the small town where Val and Granddad live, the town is celebrating the 300th anniversary of its founding, and they're having a big festival. Lots of people are coming, and everybody's been asked to take a few extra people in for the weekend because there isn't enough room in the hotels, and mostly bed and breakfasts are in that area. So coming to Val and Granddad's house are a group of people who are planning a wedding. It's the bride-to-be, her bridesmaid, her maid of honor, best man, and the groom's family has a house nearby, but curiously, he didn't invite people to come to his house wedding. But the whole thing, well, Granddad serves them chocolate fondue to welcome them. And that night, after the fireworks, Val stumbles on a body in the backyard, and it is one of the guests. And at night, she could have been mistaken for any of the other women who were staying there, or even Val. So Val and Granddad have a good reason to be looking for who the murderer is. And the whole story really revolves around love, the dark side and the sweet side. And there are a number of love triangles, including some involving Val and Granddad. So that's kind of the thematic unity behind Final Fondue. Next one is called The Telltale Tart.
That's my favorite title. I love that title.
Most of you probably know it's a takeoff on Edgar Allan Poe, The Telltale Heart. And so Poe is really a presence hovering over the whole story. The victim and the suspects all have something to do with Poe. There's an actor who has a one-man Poe show, and he's very busy around Halloween time, needless to say. There's a writer who does whose stories are riffs on stories that Poe wrote. And there's a professor who specializes in Poe, and another would-be writer who actually looks like the young Edgar Allan Poe. And they are all involved in the murder of one of them. Well, they're not all involved. Val and Granddad suspect they are involved, and they end up being marooned essentially at the house of the writer, whose name is Rick Usher, like the name of the main character in Poe's House of Usher. So if you know anything about that story, it's a kind of a creepy night. What I like about this book is that it also incorporates some real mysteries about Poe. For example, probably the most expensive book for book collectors, American book, is a first edition of Poe's poetry. And one of those, there are only about a dozen of them. One of them was stolen from the University of Michigan back in the 1970s, never been found. And so I give a little bit of background on who may have stolen it, of course, fictionally, of course. And there's another, if you live around where I do, which is in the Washington, Baltimore area, you might know something about the Poe toaster. This is an individual who for 50 years made a trip to Poe's grave in Baltimore, drank a toast, left three roses, I believe, yeah, 3 roses, all the time. And he was never caught. He was seen, and the next morning there would be half a bottle of brandy and the roses, and people would camp out, really, literally, to try to catch him, but he had a secret way in. He stopped doing that. The Poe toaster ended in 2009. So the book has a theory about why the Poe toaster stopped in 2009 and who it might have been. So I kind of like those things where you can bring in real life mysteries as part of your fictional mystery.
That's awesome. It sounds like fun.
Yeah, it really was a fun one. The next one, it has a title that has nothing to do with the story, and that there's kind of a reason for that. But it is called Some More Murders. You might actually be able to see the s'mores down on the second, in the middle book on the second shelf. Yeah, where there's a marshmallow and so on. And the story, though, actually has to do with a recreation of the final meal served on the Titanic. And Val has taken up as a sideline some catering. And she is asked by the owner of a yacht, and he's a Titanic fanatic, to create this 10-course dinner for 8 people, on, a week's notice or something. And, she asks for a lot of money, says she's going to need her grandfather there and maybe a friend. And he's perfectly willing to pay anything it takes to get her to do this. And so on the night of the Titanic final meal recreation, the guests come aboard and they're all dressed in Dressed to Kill 1912 style, fancy clothes from that era. And the host announces that over dinner, they're going to play a game, a murder mystery game called Death on the Titanic. and has given them all parts and roles to play and a script to follow. And as Val is serving the meal, she becomes very suspicious that he's really trying to find out who was the culprit in a more recent crime. Okay, and then somebody goes overboard. And so it's up to Val and Granddad to figure out who done it before some more murders go down. But, well, they don't exactly succeed in that. But eventually they figure out who it is. So. Oh, okay. So if you're getting tired, there's only 2 more to go.
No, you're good. You're absolutely. I think they sound right. And I've read through the first 3. I had to start doing all 100% audio because of some eye issues going on. And so I haven't, but so no, I'm enjoying the synopsis. I think they all sound wonderful, and I love the titles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the titles are a lot of fun. The next one is called Cryptsuzette, and it's a Halloween story.
Oh, I love
yeah. And there are a lot of, I play a lot with the idea of ghosts, particularly literary ghosts. A lot of characters are named for ghosts you may be know something about. And it starts actually at a Halloween party that is being given at the new bookstore that has just opened up in town. And there's a costume contest, and people are supposed to come dressed as a book character, preferably a kind of creepy book character or just someone from literature. And so we've got a bunch of people there. we have Moaning Myrtle from the Harry Potter books, and we have Lady Macbeth too, and we've got the Phantom of the Opera, and we've got a zombie, and of course several Draculas, or several vampires at any rate. But it turns out that a lot of these people who are in the costume contest are members of a writing group called the Fictionistas. And Granddad happens to be temporarily renting a room in his house to a student who's also a fictionista. And when she is run over the night after the costume contest, the police think it's an accident. Val and Granddad remember that she has been very concerned, acting as if she thinks someone followed her. And then they decide to look into this. And then the Fictionistas start accusing each other of killing her on purpose. So the whole story really revolves around this fiction group, and also about what this woman who is killed was writing and how it pertained to her previous life. So it's kind of fun. And there are a lot of Halloween type things that go on. For example, Granddad does some ghost busting, and Val and her new beau go for a haunted house tour, and there they find some clues that are going to help her solve the murder. So it's really a fun. That's one of my favorite books. And the last one that came out was Ginger Dead Man, and actually I think I have a large version of the cover to show you. Whoops. I can't get used to this.
Now it's perfect. Yep. Oh, I know it's backwards. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's backwards. So it's
so cute.
Yeah. And so this is, as you can imagine, a Christmas mystery. And it happens during Bayport's Dickens of a Holiday Festival. And all the townspeople who have volunteered are walking around in costumes and Victorian clothes. And Granddad's been assigned the role of Scrooge, which he's not too happy about, because he expected to be Santa Claus. But there was a newcomer to town who usurped his role as Santa Claus. And that Santa Claus the new Santa Claus is more naughty than nice. At the end of the day of the festival, Val has been serving English teas to people all day long. People have paid to have a genuine English tea. But now that the festival is winding down, Val is serving tea to the volunteers who've worked so hard. And they all come in costume. And they're sitting around the table. Santa and Mrs. Claus are there. Granddad's there as Scrooge. There's the ghost of Christmas past, and Miss Havisham, who wears her wedding gown ever since she was jilted at the altar, wears her wedding gown for the rest of her days. And that's a Dickens character. But anyway, somebody crashes the party, dressed from head to toe in black. I don't want to say more about the costume, but basically the costume is very similar to what Dickens describes as the ghost of Christmas future, who's kind of the scary ghost in there, because that ghost represents the death of Scrooge and how few people are going to mourn him. But anyway, I had a lot of fun with, all those Dickens characters, and I really enjoyed the costuming aspects that I've explored in Cryptsuzette. So I used them again in Ginger Dead Man with the different types of costumes. Well, this totally unrecognizable person comes and gives everybody, each of the volunteers, a gift. And they think, oh, well, this is someone thanking us for our time and trouble today. And so nobody knows what's in the gift, but Santa is the first to open his little package, and he pulls out what appears to be a gingerbread man, only it is a ginger dead man. So this kind of a cookie is very popular at Halloween, but it's kind of creepy at Christmas, and nobody really wants to eat this treat, except for Santa, of course. I mean, we know he's crazy about cookies, and he chomps down the ginger dead man, and you know what happens next. He keels over. So, as I said, he's not such a nice man, but still, you don't want somebody getting murdered. But the thing is, there's another person who gets a gift left on his doorstep. It's something different. Chocolates, eats a chocolate, and he keels over. And it's beginning to look like there's a Christmas serial killer in town. So there's even more reason for Val and Granddad to become involved in solving this murder, particularly because it hits very close to home for them. So those are the 7 books in the series. There is an 8th one in the works, but It's not coming out until 2022, and I don't have the exact date yet. But I'm sorry none of these are in audio. My publisher has the audio rights, and it's up to them whether to do audio. But I may try to get them back, because I know some writers have been able to get their rights back and do that when the publisher has been unwilling to do that kind, because a lot of people really like audiobooks.
They do. I didn't, before all this kind of stuff happened, with my eyes a little bit more, I was not a fan, but now that I kind of adjusted to it, I'm like, well, I can do it while I crochet, and I can do it while I, do a puzzle or clean, and so then I'm like, okay, I could get used to this. So now I feel like I really have gotten used to it. But I'd also be very, very happy to, even if it's just every once in a while, read a physical book or even ebook or anything. I just, so we'll see. But yeah, no, those all sound great. And I've read the first 3, and they are, I really, really enjoy the series. And the last 2, I'm a sucker for anything with costume. If we could dress up every day, I would, if it wasn't, frowned upon, or people wouldn't point at the grocery store and laugh. But yeah, they all sound, and the titles are amazing, and they have cute covers on them too. The gingerbread one is such a cute Christmas cover.
Yeah, I actually have 2 covers for everything. Behind me are the hardcover large print books. So maybe your eyes would like those better. I mean, I don't know. But so those are not the covers that are on the original book, which are in, kind of the mass market paperback size. Right. Although Ginger Dead Man's a little bit bigger than the traditional paperback size. Now, the other thing is that they are all an ebook. I don't know if so, and the ebooks are really inexpensive on Amazon at the moment, the earlier ones at any rate. So you can catch up very quickly with it that way if you have any of them.
Yeah. So just to catch up on, I know people come in and want to say hello or ask a question. Storm, we said hi. Hi, Susan. And then the very next person is another Susan. Susan W. Hi, Susan H.
Wait a minute. I have to wave this. I can't get used to this.
Susan said, I haven't read any in this series, but I will be checking them out. Cozy said, I'm loving the description of each book. They all sound fun and interesting. The ones I read are seriously, I love Grandpa. I have a thing for some feisty elderly people. So I'm a big fan of Grandpa.
Yeah. He was actually modeled on my father, who, I grew up in a traditional family, and my mother put dinner on the table every night, and it was waiting for him, and we all had to wait for him to come back from work before we sat down, and so on. When she was diagnosed with cancer when she was about early 80s, and she went through chemo, and it was horrible, but she came through it fine. But during the time when all she could do was lie in bed, my father decided it was his responsibility to feed her, to get her meals. And so he basically took over the cooking when he was 85. Now, Granddad's a little younger than that. But the funny thing is my father, did this to the point where he was even inviting me to come and for dinner, the dinner that he made. And I'd say, oh, wow, this is really good. And he'd say, yes, and it had only 3 ingredients, so he was kind of the one, and then who sort of gave me the idea for Granddad. And, so it was a fun character to write. And my father was pretty feisty, and like Granddad, like to get the better of people if he could.
I like when authors, have kind of mimicked a character off somebody, or, taken pieces from people and, put them in the book. I think that makes it extra special. I think that's awesome. Everybody's saying, I love hearing the synopsis of the books. Jessica, Lady Lovestead reads, hello, Breezy. Hello, Jessica from the.
Wow. All right. I got to go that way.
Fran Musio says, you're my favorite author, Maya. I know she's not talking to me because I don't write. So no, I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you, Fran. Fran and I go back a long way. Fran knew me when I wrote my first book, which was when I was a freshman in high school.
Oh, hello, Fran. That's awesome.
Yeah. Now that one, I still have that one, but I want anyone to read it.
What was the title?
It was called The Fabulous Four. And can you believe the Beatles took that over from me? I mean, that was pre-Beatles, the Fab Four. It was about a group of teenagers who make a trip across the United States in a van from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they have an adventure at every stop along the way. So, not a mystery. You
should have just added some musical instruments, and you could have just said, "Hey." Kay said, "Love stories when granddads are involved." Kay is my mother-in-law. Hello, Kay. So everybody be nice. No, I always say that. I'm just teasing her. Storm said, I love the gingerbread cookie. Cozy.
Well, maybe I should say something now about something that Tiffany and I talked about. I'm on a blog called Mystery Lover's Kitchen. And one of the recipes so I'm on there twice a month with a recipe, as are 11 other writers, we take turns. And I did have a recipe to make a ginger dead man, as well as some lots easier to make gingerbread bar cookies. So.
Yeah. And guys, I will link the Mystery Lover's Kitchen. I also linked it the week that I interviewed Leslie Budowitz. So you might have, several people might have already. But if you didn't, I really recommend it. It'll go straight to your email. You can subscribe to the email letters, and it is amazing. I really love it. And they're always getting new authors. We were talking about how they're always fluctuating new authors, and it's really, really fun. I love that site. Cozy wants to know, does the main character cook in each book? Go, I'll let.
Okay. Does the main character cook in each book? Actually, yes. And with Granddad, I mean, there are a lot of people. There are people who write cozy mysteries that really focus on cozy culinary mysteries that really focus on kind of gourmet food and descriptions of it and tastes of it. I focus a lot more on the cooking, the eating, and the cleaning in the kitchen that goes on with Val and Granddad, because that's where they sort of trade notes on what they've learned from the suspects or witnesses during the day, and they debate different ideas about who might have committed the murder. I love cooking scenes in particular because you can get a lot of emotion into them. Like when Granddad smacks down a crab cake, he's getting annoyed about something Val said, so there's a lot of byplay that goes on. And I think one of the problems that writers have when they're writing books is they have a lot of dialogue, and there's the question of, well, what are these people doing while this is going on? And so I try to use the food for that. Maybe there's something on the table or Granddad, I think in the first book, is cleaning fish. He fishes because this takes place near the Chesapeake Bay. So he's got to scale the fish. And you know, by the way he's doing it, that, you know, he's excited about something. So, you know, I do use those cooking scenes, but, you know, and there's one book, I think it's Some More Murders, where he gives a young man tips on how to grill the perfect hamburger. But generally, I'm not giving cooking instructions as part of the book. There are recipes at the back of the book. They're easy recipes. They're Granddad's recipes, so he's not using more than 5 ingredients. Although sometimes he cheats, and that is in a number of different ways. But they, you know, that there are cooking scenes, and they're mostly informational for solving the mystery. And
the main character, Val, she is a manager at a cafe at a fitness center. And the fitness center, or the cafe, is called Cool Down Cafe, and it's at a fitness center. I don't know. I think that's so funny. I just had to mention that because I think that's a great title.
Yeah. And, you know, there are things going on at that fitness club too, especially in the earlier books where, you know, Val sees someone she wants to get information from on a bike, a stationary bike. So she gets on the stationary bike right next to it. And so they're pedaling together, and she's been there talking, and that's how she gets her information from someone she really doesn't know. But, you know, you get to know people who are on the next machine in the fitness club.
Absolutely. Cozy said book 1 is on Kindle Unlimited, and I just bought book number 2.
Ooh,
sweet.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That is
Kindle
awesome.
Unlimited. Wow.
So when so Grandpa is kind of mirrored after your father. Is anybody else kind of mirrored after a character, or have you ever? You can just, you know, give me a sly nod if you don't want to mention it. But has anybody ever been a real character that you've killed or anything like that?
No, I really don't. I don't. There are situations in the book, in a lot of the books, that annoy me a lot. I mean, because one of the things, in a lot of cases in the books, what is behind the murder is a crime that someone got away with. You know, and, you know, I mentioned the business of scamming against retirees, and why people get away with that has to do with how difficult it is to prosecute those cases. But there are other types of crimes people get away with because people think they're victimless crimes. Let's say gambling, for example. Having gambling considered a victimless crime, but it can lead to murder. There is also driving while impaired. Driving while texting, when in a time when that wasn't illegal, you know, so nobody is going to get dinged for doing that, but it can have really bad consequences. So, you know, or in some of the later books, there are some of the Me Too issues that come up where people get away with things that they shouldn't. So most of the books do have that as part of it, because it always annoys me if I read about a situation where people have done something wrong and justice is not served. So that's kind of more what I do. It's not a character, hopefully, that I know who has you know done this, but maybe something I read in the newspaper. I do get ideas from the newspaper.
Yeah. So I know you said you wrote your first book in high school. So did you always want to be a writer? Did you do other things?
Oh, well, I always wanted to be a writer.
Yeah.
And the other things that I did brought in some money and they involved writing too, but not fictional writing. I got a PhD in English, and I taught for many years, about 15 years on the college level. I even taught a course on the literature of mystery and detection, which was great fun. Awesome. Mostly I taught American literature, and I taught writing. And then after that, I went into private enterprise, working on educational uses of computers. You know, so I was doing a lot of writing then too, and a lot, manuals in many instances. So I can tell the writing I did was either academic writing and manual writing, and this was, this is not. It's creative in the sense that you have to write something that people won't fall asleep over, but it's not creative in the sense of writing fiction. And I really wanted to write fiction to entertain. When I wrote that first book, as soon as I finished each chapter, I gave it to my best friend to read. And I'd watch her when she was reading it, and if she smiled and if she laughed, I was really happy. And I really want to be somebody who writes things that make people laugh, or at least make them smile. And so I didn't get to do that until after I'd made money writing these kind of things that aren't going to entertain anybody. Got to make some money.
So had you been writing, and then because you published your first book in what, 2014? Is that right? 2014. So had you been writing the book though for a long time before that, and you just decided to go for it, or how did that all come about?
Okay, well, that's actually the second mystery I wrote. I wrote another one back in the 1990s, and
okay.
But that's sitting in the drawer. It doesn't deserve to come out. But this one, the one that this one that By Cook or By Crook ended up being, that one I worked on for a number of years, and it had actually won a couple of prizes for unpublished works, but I couldn't get an agent. And I got and it actually was a finalist for the Malice Domestic prize that is given. I mean, for the prize that's given out in connection with Malice Domestic, for the best, first novel that is given out at the Malice Domestic conference. But I couldn't get an agent interested in it. They kept saying to me, well, I like this, but I don't think it has series potential. I had no idea in my mind of writing a series. It never occurred to me. I said, why would I write series potential? I'm trying to sell a book. Well, it took several years for it to sink in that what I needed to do was make this the first in a series, and that's when, now it didn't start out as a culinary mystery. Oh. That's when I decided, I looked at the market and said, okay, there are people looking for culinary mysteries here. There's one agent even who will consider an unpublished writer if you send a proposal for a cozy series. Okay, so then I looked at the cozy mysteries that were being sold. A lot of them have to do with crafts. Some of them have to do with critters, cats, dogs, whatever. Some of them have to do with shopkeepers. Some of them have to do with cooking. I said, I can do that. I've been doing that for many years, but it wasn't the kind of cooking that's in a lot of culinary mysteries where your main character is a caterer or runs a gourmet restaurant or writes reviews of mysteries of restaurants, whatever it happens to be. All I knew was how to put food on the table for 4 people every night for years and years and years. And, the family big dinners. So I thought, well, nobody's writing a book where there are recipes for making things that are easy to make. The people who are caterers or bakers, they've got these long recipes with 15 ingredients, which I personally am never going to make. I glaze over after about 8 ingredients when I look at a recipe. So I decided, well, why don't I try this idea of, basing it on a few ingredients? And I sent that to an agent and got an email at 10:30 at night on a Saturday and said, call me next week. Let's talk about a contract. I have a drawer full of rejections for my standalone mystery. This isn't that different, but it has a different twist to it. I write it up as the first in the series, and I've got an agent right away.
Wow.
So it needed to sink into my head that publishers want a series. And I didn't know that when I started. So if any writers are out there and you've got one book to sell, think about turning it into the first book in a series.
That's awesome. Do you read a lot of cozy mysteries?
I have a strong background in traditional mysteries. Dorothy Sayers, Agatha Christie is what I was teaching. And I have, as in the 1980s, when people started writing books with female amateur sleuths, people like Carolyn Hart and Nancy Picard, I read all of those books, Joan Hess, all of those. Right now, I try not to read cozy mysteries when I'm writing a book, because I don't want somebody else's voice to get into my head. I mean, I have to have Val's voice and Granddad's voice and Bethany's voice, her best friend. And, if I start reading somebody else, I'm going to start writing like them, and I know this because I love Jane Austen, but if I ever read a Jane Austen book, when I'm writing, the next thing I know is I'm writing, like a 19th century writer, it just, it gets into your brain. So I do read mysteries, though, a lot of mysteries. Let's see, what have I read? Well, I reread Agatha Christie a lot, but I read this thing called 8 Perfect Murders, which is really kind of a thriller as well as a traditional mystery. And that was good. And I'm reading a really unusual book at the moment, and it is called Recipes for Crime. And it's an older book. It was written by Carrie Greenwood, who wrote the Miss Fisher mysteries. Some of you may know those from PBS. And she's an Australian. She wrote it with another Australian woman, Jenny Pausacker. And what they do is they're a collection of short stories, and they are culinary. They have a culinary slant to them, but they're written, well, as a Sherlock Holmes mystery, as a Lord Peter Wimsey mystery, just in the and I think there might even be a Sam Spade mystery, that it's just all different styles, one chapter of each, because they're short stories, and there are little recipes included with them. So it's a really fun book. And each chapter starts with a brief description of the type of mystery and when it was popular and what are the features of it. So it's kind of educational too. So, but you won't be able to get it. And so I really shouldn't say that. I actually had to get this on interlibrary loan because it's out of print. And it was published only in Australia. And I think you can probably get it if you're in Australia. It's probably available from eBay, not eBay, but Amazon in Australia. But it is available here, but it costs like $85. So I thought interlibrary loan was a better way to go. But maybe with all the interest in culinary mysteries, somebody will bring it out again.
Wow. So do you usually figure out the killer? Are you hard to fool when you read a mystery?
When I read it, most of the time, because I've read all the Agatha Christie's 60 mysteries twice over, I can pretty much figure it out, but not always. In fact, I can go and read an Agatha Christie that I read 40 years ago, and I won't remember who did it. But, sort of towards the end, I'll say, oh, I know this, because you get their tricks. I do try to figure it out. I feel like, it's kind of a game that the author is playing with me as a reader and giving me the clues, but just hiding them as best as possible. So I sometimes I don't figure it out is the answer. Yeah.
I never figure it out. But one of the things that, and I think you said this earlier, but along with the 5 ingredients, her books always have 5 suspects, and they always have 5 clues, mm-hmm. Which is fun. It's just, you can expect that. I think that's a really cool system. I like that. I need more. If you can just maybe double that, because or what I really
mean 10. You want 10 suspects?
No, 5. No. I just need more clues. I just need somebody that has a flashing bulb above their head is what I need. I never figure it out. Well,
I think that's the game. The author puts them there, but the author does not want you to figure it out, because you know what? You wouldn't like it. You would not like it if you knew who did it, before the sleuth did. You would say, well, this wasn't such a great book.
You know what?
Isn't that true? I mean,
I think you're right. I think I would feel like, I don't know. I like to be, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. I always ask this: if you were, gosh forbid, murdered, knock on wood, double time, what sleuth would you want on your case? What TV, book, any detective? Who would you want to solve and give you justice?
Well, that's a hard one. I think Poirot wouldn't do a bad job, but the police are in pretty good shape. If I were murdered these days, I would definitely want some police on the case. And one of my favorite series, and this is again something that maybe Who's There from England? Sophia, maybe you know this one. They are the books written by Reginald Hill, and there's a series on TV called a DL and Pascoe series, and they are a pair of policemen in Yorkshire. And there are about 20 books in the series. They're all wonderful. Very, very good writer who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. But I think they would be pretty good to have on the case, because they've got all the resources that police departments have. And Poirot just had his little gray cells. So yeah, I'd go for the police.
Gotcha. So I know that you said you had a couple other books that you've read or that you've wrote and you haven't put out there, but have you written under any other name? I only ask because it seems like everybody has pen names now. And there's so many times where I'll be reading somebody and then it'll be like, wait, they're also this person? And then I got to go find those books. So I've been trying to ask you if you have any pen name that you write under.
Well, my pen name is Maya Corrigan. My real name is Mary Ann Corrigan, and I wrote some short stories under that name. And they are, they're in the Chesapeake, some of the Chesapeake Crimes books, and also there was another book called The Bad Hair Day that they were in. That was kind of a comic one, but otherwise, no. I'm either Mary Ann Corrigan, and I wrote some very boring academic papers under that name too. They're out there too. But no, so far it's only Maya Corrigan. Now, those people who have a pen name, it's very often imposed by the publisher.
Yeah.
So it's not that they really want to have 2 or 3 names, but it makes it a lot easier if you just have one.
I agree. Yeah, because a lot of them, they'll have separate websites, the whole bit. Yeah. And I'm like, for a long time, I wouldn't even have connected the dots. And it'll be somebody I really, really enjoy, but I didn't even know that this other series was the same person. So, but Cozy, she went and looked, and she found a list of 50 pen names and did a big list for everybody and did a video about this is that they write under this name and this name and this name and then all their series. It was very, very helpful. But man, there's a ton of them. So okay, so Mary Ann and then
Maya is just a shortened form of Mary Ann, and I picked it because my books come out in this tiny little paperback size, and my name will be bigger because there are fewer letters.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. So you said an 8th book will be coming out in 2022.
Yes, 2022. Yes.
And then is there still a plan to continue this series?
Yes, there will be at least a 9th book. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
That will come out in 2023 probably. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
That I haven't even figured out what I'm going to write about. Yeah. But I have contracts for 2 more books. Yeah.
Is there ever a thought that you would want to write another series that you're even thinking about doing or anything like that?
Well, there is another book that I wrote even before I started this, and
Oh,
it's done quite well. Also, was a finalist for the Malice Domestic Prize, and I want to make some changes in it. I have to turn it into a series, the first in a series rather than the standalone that it was. So that is a possibility. I also would like to do some nonfiction writing, and so you know, pertaining probably to writing mysteries and so on. So I've written a couple of articles in the past year that have been, one of them is in Mystery Scene magazine, and a couple on crime reads, like, well, the dark side of gingerbread, for example, because I do a lot of research into these foods, and I had another one on crime reads about really Valentines that were used basically as poison pen letters, vinegar Valentines. And so I like writing nonfiction. And I also am thinking maybe I'd really like to write a play.
A play?
A play, yeah. And,
oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, because it's something, theater, drama was what I essentially was focused on in my graduate studies. So I thought, I'd like to try this and maybe take one of those books that I've already written and turn it into a whodunit play.
That would be amazing. I am a huge theater person, humongous theater person. I particularly like musicals, but I mean, I love anything to do with the theater. I do.
Okay, we're going to get back to the theater very soon.
I hope so. I really, really hope so, because I haven't got to see Hamilton yet. And that was coming out like towards when, so I didn't, because I was in a lottery. That was when you still, like, Hamilton was still doing the lottery kind of stuff to get tickets. I was in St. Louis at that time. And to see it at the Fox Theater where they did the Broadways, I mean, it was like, and then COVID hit. And now since I've moved to Florida, but yeah, so I'm really excited to get back to theater. And they made Charlie and the Chocolate Factory into a musical, which I'm so excited about.
All right.
So anyways, so yes, I think that would be amazing. That would be awesome. So I'm thinking about a murder mystery play, because then it could be done at like a dinner theater,
right? And actually we have one really close to us that does whodunit plays, and they've been doing it throughout COVID, but it's not quite the same thing on Zoom as it is in a theater. But yeah, I mean, I think they would be open to trying out something that, and even maybe give me some tips, because they're always looking for new whodunit type things.
Yeah. Where I'm at in Florida, there's a little railroad that doesn't really run anymore, but they still have the train cars, and they use those as they do dinner productions, and they do dinner murder mysteries on the train, and you go one way and then you have dinner and then you ride it back. It's like 3 miles one way, 3 miles back, or something like that. And they do dinner murder mysteries. It's a lot of fun. So somebody wants to know if you can talk about your writing process, Maya. Are you a pantser?
I am.
I just like to say the word. I just like to say it.
Yeah. No, I do have to start with something like an outline. I would have said absolutely no when I started out, because I've always been someone who outlined. When I was away from home and used to write letters, I would outline my letter to my parents before I wrote it. But I have found in writing these books that I do have to be that it's a combination, that, I need to have a basic idea, a framework of where I'm going, and have in mind a killer and, the murder scene and all the rest of it before I start. So I do maybe an outline of maybe 35 scenes. Now the book ends up with probably more like 75 scenes, but I don't know what they're going to be right at the beginning. And it, I never would have believed that I would change who the murderer was from what was my original thought, but I have done that 3 times.
Oh.
Once after I'd written the final scene with a different murderer, when I work with a group, a critique group. 3 of us are working on different kinds of mysteries, and we exchange a chapter or so every week, and we give each other a critique. And one of my critique partners told me, "You've got the wrong murderer." Really? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized she was right. So part of my process is actually to work with other people who give me feedback as I'm going along. I mean, I know everybody sends their final manuscript to a number of readers to get feedback, but I find it very helpful to do it on a weekly basis so that I don't go way off base, so my 2 writing friends, tell me everything that's wrong, and I do the same for them. I mean, it's not negative, it's very positive. I mean, this is how you can make this better, and it's an essential part of the writing process for me, that I work alone and get a scene done or a chapter, and then I get feedback with somebody who's been reading along the whole book as it's being done. So I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, so you're a sagging pantser. You're kind of, that's
well, no, I'm still pulling them on.
I'm
still trying to get into them. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
And that may be part of sagging too. I don't know.
Yeah. So somebody, a lot of people kind of, write with a general, I mean, there's some people that, like you said, that are completely off the cuff, but for the most part, most of the people I've talked to, even if it's just a general outline or they'll have like the bubbles that, or fill in these, different things or something like that. But I think I like books. I mean, obviously you never know how people are writing, but I think the ones that have told me that they write more like you, I can tell that I like their books better because I feel like they kind of let the characters drive the story as opposed to the other way around. Because I've heard them say stuff like, "Oh, well, I didn't know my main character was going to do that." And I think that makes the flow of the story, I just think it flows better. I like people who kind of write off the cusp a little bit with just a general outline like you're talking about.
One of the big things that helps me, that amaze me, is that my subconscious is working on things while I sleep. And very often when I wake up in the morning, I'll have a solution to a problem I had on the page the night before. And so to a certain extent, that's a pantser type thing. I don't know the answer ahead of time, but I wake up in the morning and suddenly it's perfectly clear. And that's to me what inspiration must mean, believe me, I wasn't inspired when I was writing manuals or academic books. But this is just a great feeling to have, to write while I sleep, so to speak.
Yeah. Do you have a writing schedule you try to keep to?
Well, I try, but life is, life's busy. I do probably write. I write every day. I write some every day. I would be unless, some big thing is happening, somebody's visiting, or, I go away for, to a, national park or something for the day. But yeah, I try to write every day. I'm a very slow writer, which is why I have 1 series and you have other people on your broadcast who have 3 or 4 series. I can only work on 1 at a time. And I write slowly because I have an internal editor that, really wants me to keep going over those sentences and get them right. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Well, you only need 1 when it's great, right?
Well, yes, that's true. And I'd like to do some other kinds of writing too. And so,
Well, we want you to still continue with the cozies, even if
yes.
you're doing other stuff.
Mhm.
You gotta make some time still.
Oh, I will. I've got a contract for 2 more.
Oh.
To make, there's nothing that concentrates the mind better than a deadline.
So is your experience been you had a lot of influence with like the titles and the covers?
Okay. The titles are all mine. Final Fondue is the one that was a kind of compromise between what the editor wanted and what I wanted. But otherwise, the titles are mine. And I'm asked for ideas for the cover, which are then passed on to a graphic artist who uses what ideas he or she wants and comes up with the cover. And then here's your cover. There is no, I got one chance to say, it would be nice if you put these things on the cover. And say, for example, with Ginger Dead Man, I did specify, let's see if I can get this in the right place, the skeleton cookie right there. And I got it, and I specified, mention Dickens, and this book is A Christmas Carol here. So generally, they follow my instructions about things that I think ought to be on there. But the design is something that, I have loved every single cover. So I have no complaints about it.
Yeah.
My ears.
I think all the covers and on most cozies, I think that they have some of the best cover artists that do a lot of the, cozies and even the titles. Some people have said they've had a lot of influence on their titles, and some have said, no, I didn't really have much. And some is at work, in between, like you were talking about, but all in all, I think for the majority, they do great with both the covers and the titles. It's like one of my favorite parts of the cozies. It's definitely what drew me into the cozies is the titles and the covers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so when you write your book from start to finish, how long a process is that?
A really long process. Totally driven by the deadline. For the first three I had, first couple I had 9 months to.
Oh.
And then it went to a year. Now this last time, for the one I'm working on now, the one that's coming out next year, I asked for more time than that because my plan was to do a lot of traveling in 2020. Well, guess what happened to that plan? I had some, I had probably 8 weeks when I wasn't going to be home. I was going to make 2 trips to Europe. I was going out west, it's like, let's slow this down. And I didn't know it was going to slow to a stop, but that's the way it goes. So I ideally I'd like a year. I think now people who write 3 series at once have to do it a lot faster. I don't understand how they do it. It's just not how I write. So I can't do it.
I don't know how anybody does it either. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I couldn't write 1 book a year though. So I guess, but yeah, there's some people that handle way too much. And I'm thinking, I don't know how they balance all of that, but
right.
A mystery. Such is a mystery.
It's a mystery. So much in life is a mystery.
Very true. Very, very true. So what character do you think that you're most like?
Well, I'd have to say I'm most like Val. The main character. Maybe I'm too much like her. Maybe she's too much like me. I don't know. Maybe she's too much like me. It's hard. The whole book is in her head. And so there's very little that, she does that I wouldn't do, except maybe she's a little bit more willing to do dangerous things than I am. That's it. But she's not one of those stupid people who, goes off on her own. When she finds out when she finds out information, she goes to the police with it. You know, she's not going out on her own to, you know, face the killer. And I know there are people who write books where, you know, the final scene in every single book is a confrontation between the sleuth and the killer. I find that a little bit, you know, hard to do at time after time. I mean, it happens in the first book, but it's quite an accident. Val isn't seeking out the killer. The killer has sought her out, you know, and so it's a she's usually pretty level-headed and about not getting herself into bad situations, although sometimes Granddad gets her into those situations.
I agree, because that is one of the things that I appreciate about Val, because I absolutely love cozy mysteries, but one of the things that I say time and time again, I did a thing about, you know, what I really like in cozy mysteries and what I really don't. And one of the things I really like is when the sleuth is level-headed about, you know, running into a building where they know the killer is with a gun strapped to dynamite. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean? I'm like, why would anybody think that was a good plan? Like, I can't support this behavior, you know, and then they get out scot-free. And I'm like, nah, but I feel like very level-headed, very, you know, doesn't put themselves in those kind of situations. I agree. I 100% agree. Lisa K. Hi, Lisa K.
Lady Lovestead Reed says that some people write on top of a full-time job. I don't know how they do that.
I know.
And they have hobbies, and you know, I guess they have more time in their life than I do. I don't know.
You know, maybe they don't sleep. I enjoy sleep too much for that.
Yes. Me too. I did work with someone once who only got 3 hours sleep, and she got enormous amounts of things done, and I just couldn't. There's no way.
You got 21 hours in a day to do it, so a lot more than my, you know, 15, 16. So that makes sense, I guess. So, I definitely couldn't survive on 3 hours sleep. There's no way. And holy moly, or you wouldn't want to be around me. I mean, I guess I could do it, but I wouldn't be the person that you see here. So, when did your last book come out? The seventh book?
The seventh book was the Christmas book, and it came out in end of September, early October of 2020.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and then the eighth one is 2022. So you probably don't have a title yet.
Well, I do, but I don't know that the publisher, I mean, I never give out the title until pretty much I know the publisher is going with it. So, so I like to wait. I mean, I submitted it. I didn't hear no, but that happened once before and it was a no. So and when it got much further along in the process, so I'll hold that a secret for a while.
I gotcha. Makes sense. So if people want to keep up, you have a website. Do you have a newsletter that you do on the website?
Yes.
I signed up for so many of them. It's hard for me to keep track because anytime I go to a website of somebody I like and they have like, follow me in the newsletter, I'm like, and so like my email is
right. Yes, I do, but I won't stuff your email box. I probably do 4 a year.
Okay.
And then maybe if I have a book coming out, I may do 5 or 6, but I don't do a monthly one or anything like that. And so it is really just for news. Well, this book is coming out, or some other kind of that news. I'm going to be on a BookTube. But so I'll send one out, once this is up there, and I can give people a link and they can watch it afterwards. And so,
awesome.
that kind of thing. So just something new. And I do have a website that has a lot of fun information about mysteries and trivia. And I'm putting things on there now about food history. And
Oh, cool.
so, you know, it's got a lot of stuff so that you can poke around there. It isn't just, here are my books, buy them, and this is where you can buy them. So there are a lot of other aspects to it. And I also put up recipes there.
Love it. Love it. And I do have that linked, and then I'll go back and link the Mystery Lovers Kitchen too.
Yes.
Which is a great site. And then I'll probably link the KU or the information about the books that are on sale, because I think a few of them you said maybe on sale.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I know yes, I think actually the last time I looked, they were all cut by at least $1 or more.
Oh, nice.
The only problem is books 1 and 2 are at this point only available as ebooks. So I do know some booksellers, independent booksellers, who have copies. And so if somebody just fills out the contact form on my website, I can probably put them in touch with the booksellers who have copies. And what else was I going to say? Yeah. And I also do book giveaways. I do book giveaways on Mystery Lovers Kitchen, and I give a book away every time I send out a newsletter. So I go, I do a random number thing on the newsletter, people who've signed up, and announce the name of the winner. So you just get in touch with me and you get your choice of a book.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, well, I really, really appreciate you chatting with me. And if you would like to come back before your 8th book is coming out, I would love to have you back right before or right after or during, whatever will work for you. And by then I'm hoping to really catch up, because I might just get the books on ebook. I have a appointment coming up to hopefully kind of work out some of these eye issues, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So because I really want to check out the series. So I would love to have you back and chat with us again. And I appreciate your time, and it was so fun. I really had a good time.
Well, thank you. You're a wonderful host, and thank you to everybody who came by, and I really appreciate it. And have a great weekend, everyone.
Yes, you too. Bye, everyone. I'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Thanks, Maya. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.